Good morning, Holy Trinity, and happy Thursday. I want to share with you a little bit about the story of Saint Juan Diego and Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe, Our Lady of Guadalupe. It begins with Saint Juan Diego, who was a convert to Christianity in the year 1531. He was on his way to the big city to go to church and to learn about Christianity. And this was at a time when the Spanish missionaries who had come to the New World with the conquistadores were trying to make converts among the Aztec people, but they weren't having a whole lot of success for obvious reasons because the native people associated them with the conquistadores and didn't trust them much. And so Juan Diego was one of these converts. He was learning his catechism. He was on his way to catechism classes, and at the hill of Tepeyac, Mary appeared to him. And Mary appeared to him and she said, "Go and tell the bishop to build a church dedicated in my honor on this hill." And so Juan Diego did that, and the bishop naturally didn't believe him, was like, "What are you talking about? Go back, bring me a sign." And so Juan Diego goes back. And the next time when he is coming past the hill, his uncle is actually dying. And his uncle is also a Christian convert. And so Juan Diego deliberately tries to avoid seeing Mary because he knows he needs to get to the priest so he can bring a priest back to anoint his uncle. And so he goes around the other side of the hill. And Mary appears to him and she says, "Juanito, my beloved Juan, my little Juan, my Juan who I love, why are you trying to avoid me? Do you not trust me? Do you not know that I care for you? Your uncle will be fine." In the meantime, Mary has appeared to his uncle as well. And so she says, "Trust me." And she also says, and I may be getting the times that she appeared a little mixed up, but she also says, "Take these roses that are growing on the hill to the bishop and that will be a sign for him." And it wasn't the time of year for roses, so there should never have been the roses growing there. And they were also a type of rose that was from Spain, not from the New World, and so they had no business being there. But they were there, and Juan Diego went and picked those roses, gathered them up in his tilma, his vestment that he was wearing, and he carries them to the bishop, and he lets them all down in front of him. And the bishop, instead of staring at the roses, stares at the clothing, where the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe is now part of the clothing that Juan Diego was wearing, and has remained there for the 500 years since. That image was miraculously put there by Mary herself. And it is that image, almost more than the story, which ended up converting millions of the Aztec people. 9 million converts over the course of the next 10 years. And the reasons are the symbolism that is in the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe was understandable to the Aztec people in a way that the Spanish missionaries weren't. And I just want to talk a little bit about a couple of the symbols that are in there. One is the color of the clothing that Mary's wearing. The color of the clothing that Mary's wearing is a color that was reserved to royalty and to divinity. But at the same time, in the Aztec culture, divine beings would have had their faces covered. You wouldn't be able to see their faces. And so the fact that you're able to see Mary's face indicates that she has this honor of divinity, but she's not herself divine. And that's just from the clothing and the face. Her face is also downcast, and there's this sense of humility. And if you look closely, her face has a combination of Spanish features as well as Aztec features. She appears as a mestiza, a mixture. She is both Aztec and Spanish. And so there's this sense of growing trust that the Aztec people have in their lady, their new lady who has appeared to them. Couple other symbols in there that are really important. One is if you look right over her womb, you'll see a little forked-petaled flower, and that symbol is actually the symbol of a new age. And it would have been interpreted as what is in Mary's womb is the beginning of a new age for the Aztec people. It is a spectacular promise, and the black ribbon held up so high above her womb is indicating that she is pregnant, and the child within her womb will be the beginning of that new age for the Aztec people. Finally, one last symbol that somebody brought this to my attention. The little brooch that Mary's wearing around her neck has a cross on it but it's not a crucifix. It doesn't have the body of Jesus dead on the cross. And that would have been important because the Aztec people were living in a culture where human sacrifice was regularly practiced. And for Mary to be wearing the cross but without the body of Jesus on it was a way of pointing out that Jesus did in fact die on the cross, but human sacrifice was not how we were meant to worship God. It was his own willingness to die for God, but human sacrifice is over and done with. And so the dead body of a human person is no longer part of how the Aztec people were allowed to worship. They were meant to be coming to this new faith in Jesus that Our Lady of Guadalupe brought to them. And like I said, a couple more images. Mary's standing on the moon. She is clothed in the sun. She's obscuring the sun. And these images are straight out of the book of Revelation in the Bible, but they also show that the moon and the sun, which the Aztec people would have worshipped as a couple of their gods, are obscured by Mary. Mary is greater than what they had been worshiping. And yet Mary is not herself God. She has God within her womb, who's bringing a new age. All of this together brings the Aztec people to the Christian faith. And over the course of 10 years, like I said, 9 million people converted, which is 900,000 people a year. I was doing this math, which is about 3,000 people a day, which is a lot of baptism. I don't know how many Spanish priests were doing missionary work in the area of Mexico, but that is a lot of converts, especially when they were having no luck to begin with. So I encourage you, yesterday we celebrated St. Juan Diego because December 9th was the first day that Mary appeared to him. On December 12th, that was the day that he picked the flowers, brought them to the bishop, and the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe appeared on his tilma. And so we're right in the middle of this stretch of 3 days where Our Lady of Guadalupe is on our hearts. She is a huge reason why the West Coast, Mexico in particular, but also all that influence in California and even up here in Oregon, why the West Coast is as Catholic as it is. And so let's ask Our Lady of Guadalupe, patroness of the Americas, to please pray for us today and always. God bless you all.